of death, we should really be thanking the women and men who worked in those nursing homes and did an extraordinary
job. Very quick yes or no follow-up, if I may. Just the question is, were you involved in the producing of that report? It's just a yes or no question.
I was very aware of the report. I spoke to it at press conferences.
No, before it was released, Mr. Cuomo. The question is about the production of the report, the creation.
All right,
Okay, we're going to move on. We're not getting an answer. We're not going to
stand by the report.
No, it was just to whether or not you were.
So to refresh people's memory, Cuomo had a policy where he forced nursing homes to take COVID positive patients. That led to outbreaks in nursing homes, that led to people dying. When the New York State produced a report on that, the report systematically undercounted the deaths by saying, well, they didn't actually die in the nursing home because they got taken out and died either in the ambulance or in the hospital, an hour later or whatever. And then the question was, well, were you involved in the fudging of this report? He told Congress no. And then we get an email that says, attached are the governor's edits to this report. Yeah. And one of his staffers said, yeah, this is Cuomo's handwriting in the margins of the report. The criminal question might turn on whether or not his denial to Congress was, ironclad, or whether he was saying, as far as I remember, I was not involved in that report. And so there's a question like that. You're lying. You do remember, but then how do you prove that somebody has a memory? Like, it's clearly he lied.
Right. I mean, which is like, you can very much tell in the way he's dancing around and still doesn't have a good answer for this.
Like, were you involved in the report? I was aware of the report.
There's no question my team was involved in the report. Yes, that's not the question. Yeah. That is not what we asked you.
Let me be very clear and say nothing clear.
Right. And Zohran's line on this, when he was asked about it, because like you said, it is a bit of a needle to thread for, his opponents who all want to position themselves as being vehemently anti-Trump, especially after Eric Adams' collusion with the Trump regime, et cetera. He was like, listen, he did lie to Congress. That being said, Trump pursuing him has everything to do with retribution and nothing to do with justice. But yeah, he did commit a crime here. He did lie. He did ultimately lie to Congress. I thought overall, Cuomo, he seemed kind of rusty and complacent. You see this sometimes with politicians who've been in for a long time and, they sort of take things for granted and maybe don't take their opponents as seriously as they should. Like, he clearly has a level of contempt and derision towards Zohran in particular. And so he seemed kind of rusty and off his game in this debate. And I think that's evidenced by that exchange where the question that he gets asked is obviously going to be asked of him, and he still doesn't have really prepared a great response. We also had, Cuomo's running this very traditional playbook of, I have the experience, and Zohran he says that, he's been in government for 27 days and he doesn't know what he's doing, which is this sort of throwback argument, play to expertise, although maybe in a mayoral race it has more salience, I'm not sure. But I thought Zohran had a really good way of flipping this on Cuomo in this debate. Let's go ahead and take a listen to that.
The difference between myself and Andrew Cuomo is that my campaign is not funded by the very billionaires who put Donald Trump in D.C. I don't have to pick up the phone from Bill Ackman or Ken Langone. I have to pick up the phone for the more than 20,000 New Yorkers who contributed an average donation of about $80 to break fundraising records and put our campaign in second place.
Okay, Mr. Mamdani, thank you. Mr. Cuomo, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, please. Mr. Mamdani is very good on Twitter and with videos, but he actually produces nothing. For him to accuse me of lying. He also called President Obama a liar and said President Obama was evil. So take everything with a grain of salt. Donald Trump would go through Mr. Mamdani like a hot knife through butter. He's been in government 27 minutes. He passed 3 bills. That's all he's done. He has no experience with Washington, no experience in New York City. He would be Trump's delight.
All right, brief response, Mr. Mamdani, then we have to move on.
Look, it's true that I don't have experience with corrupt Trump billionaires who are funding my campaign. I don't have experience with party politics and insider consultants. I do have experience, however, with winning $450 million in debt relief for thousands of working-class taxi drivers and actually delivering it to the working-class people.
Thank you, Mr. Mamdani.
So I thought he kind of crushed him in that exchange.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, I guess, it's a question partly of do you want Andrew Cuomo back? Do you want him in your face for the next 4 or 8 years as mayor? And is it a thing where, okay, a lot of people don't like Cuomo, but he is what you get? I don't know. Well, it's hard to say. He's such a known quantity. And his father, his camp has been trying to call Mamdani a nepo baby, but he's a known quantity because his own father was governor, his wife was Kennedy. It's like, come on, who's the nep? Who's
by the way, he is no Mario Cuomo. By the way,
he is. No, I know Mario Cuomo. He's no Mario Cuomo.
Yeah. Also, the Trump's delight part is just a funny way of phrasing that. And look. Cuomo is running a playbook that I think prior to this moment would have worked very easily in New York City. Not only with regard to just he's got the name, people know who he is. There is a tendency in New York City politics to reach for someone who is sort of the safe establishment candidate. That's how Eric Adams ends up winning. De Blasio was a little bit of a break from that, but he's not that far out of the mold in the mainstream, whatever. And so this playbook that he's running, I think, in any other year would be guaranteed to win him a 30-point victory. But first of all, he went through his own scandals and is sort of disgraced in trying to recover his reputation at this point. Second of all, there is a real disgust among Democrats with the establishment Democratic Party that helped to usher in Trump, that did capitulate to Trump in many ways, Eric Adams, again, being emblematic of that. And so it's more of a question mark now over whether or not this traditional playbook, which in any other year likely would have worked, is going to work for him this time. And that is also on display in the way that they are aggressively attacking Zohran over his position on Israel. Obviously, there's a significant Jewish population in New York City, and they're, really important electorally, and there are various, relatively organized voting blocs that, Cuomo in particular, but many other candidates have been trying to appeal to. So there was this extraordinary moment at the end where they're doing their quote-unquote lightning round, and they ask all the candidates, what is the first country you're going to visit if you get elected mayor of New York City? And so you have them all going down the list, and Zohran gives this answer of, I'm not going to visit another country. I'm going to be here in New York working for the people. And unlike any other candidate, the moderators decide to jump in to say, okay, yeah, but would you visit Israel?
Right.
And then go on this, to dig into and do you support Israel? It's right, not only right to exist, but right to exist specifically as a Jewish state. Let's go ahead and take a listen to how that all went down.
Given the hostility and the anti-Semitism that has been shown in New York, I would go to Israel.
Mr. Tilson, where would you go?
Yeah, I'd make my 4th trip to Israel, followed by my 5th trip to Ukraine, 2 of our greatest allies fighting on the front lines of the global war on terror.
Mr. Mamdani.
I would stay in New York City. My plans are to address New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs and focus on that.
Mr. Mamdani, can I just jump in? Would you visit Israel as mayor?
I will be doing, as the mayor, I'll be standing up for Jewish New Yorkers, and I'll be meeting them wherever they are across the 5 boroughs, whether that's in their synagogues and temples or at their homes or at the subway platform, because ultimately we need to focus on delivering on their concerns.
And just yes or no, do you believe in a Jewish state of Israel?
I believe Israel has the right to exist.
Not
as a Jewish state?
As a state with equal rights.
He won't say it
Jewish
has a right to exist as a Jewish state. Be very clear.
And his answer was no, he won't visit Israel.
I said that very
That's what he was trying to say.
No. Unlike you, I answer questions very directly.
All right,
and I want to be very clear. I believe every state should be a state of equal rights.
Ryan, your thoughts?
First of all, the guy that wants to go to Israel and Ukraine.
That's what.
And I like how they were competing.
He's a big ed reformer, charter school guy, billionaire charter school guy.
Competing for who could have bigger yellow ribbons. Cuomo.
There was a lot of memes going on about that.
He must have been so angry when he came out and saw somebody had a bigger yellow ribbon than him.
Outrageous. Some staffer got fired over that.
But what's this guy going to Israel and Ukraine? I had to check. This is a New York City mayoral election, right? What is he going to do in Ukraine? There are a lot of Ukrainians and Russians in New York City.
Yeah. Well, Zohran's answer is, I will meet with voters here.
Yeah.
That's what I will do. And then the moderators need to jump in.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you won't go to Israel?
Will you go to Israel? It's can you imagine them going through a checklist of every other foreign what about Russia?
You're not going to go to Chad?
What about, are you going to Mexico? I mean, when's your trip to Brazil? I mean, it's just only for the country. And then the other piece here is Zohran says, I think Israel has a right to exist. And but what about as a Jewish state? And he refuses to back an explicitly ethno-nationalist state and says, I think they should have equal rights. And again, I think this playbook, it may well still be effective, right? I'm not saying it won't be. But there is a completely, frankly, racist and caricaturish view of what